Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the 5 greatest Bruckner conductors. Yeah, Bruckner conductors. They're really quite a crew, let me tell you. We just got over a Bruckner year a couple of years ago, and so there were a lot of Bruckner recordings and some new Bruckner cycles, which allowed us to modify our list of the best and the worst. Of course, this is the list of the best, but following this video is going to be the worst Bruckner conductors because there's just such a rich fund of them from which to choose. So we can't leave it unsaid. We really can't. And actually, the best ones are going to be pretty well-known names. They really are. They're not, strange or unusual, but maybe there's a little controversy in here. We'll see. Let's go through the list, shall we? First, Daniel Barenboim. Thank God, because his Deutsche Grammophon Chicago Symphony Bruckner cycle was reissued. He's done Bruckner his whole life, his whole career. He's made beautiful recordings of the Te Deum and one of the Masses and other things like that. He's devoted to Bruckner. But he's done 3 Bruckner cycles, and they are increasingly lousy. The second one on Teldec, now Warner, was with the Berlin Philharmonic. It had some decent performances in it, but it was nowhere near as exciting or fresh or interesting as his first Chicago cycle. And then the third one, was with the Staatskapelle Berlin, and it just sucked. The sound was awful. Some of them were done in connection with Unitel videos. I don't know. But it was a really flabby, uninteresting Bruckner cycle. And Barenboim was known for doing relatively quick tempi and things like that. But nope, the Chicago cycle is just terrific. It's young man's Bruckner, if you can imagine such a thing. It's usually swift, flexible in tempo, quite exciting. Barenboim's model was Furtwängler and all of these things. And it's like Furtwängler with better brass and better conducting and better everything, basically, if you go for his Chicago cycle. That's one brand of Bruckner conducting, which was also the type of Bruckner conducting realized by Eugen Jochum, number 2 on our list, who made 2 splendid Bruckner cycles, really, for the most part. He never quite got the 8th. That was never his thing, but all the rest of them he did very persuasively. And the second cycle with the Staatskapelle Dresden has some really special stuff in it. The 7th, the 9th, wow, baby. Jochum was, as with Barenboim, one of the conductors who related Bruckner more to the traditional romantic concept of what sonata form was. So they took care over flexible tempi and transitions, speeding up sometimes for climaxes, slowing down in other spots. There was more of a vocal quality to the way they interpreted Bruckner. The other way to do Bruckner really was the monolithic, strict in tempo, transcendental mode, emotionally rather cool, actually, because it was done with terraced dynamics and very straight approach to meter and rhythm and not slowing down or speeding up. And whether or not that was really transcendental, I really have no idea, but I guess that was the theory. And the acme of that type of Bruckner that's done successfully, also with extremely slow tempi, was Sergiu Celibidache. Now, he didn't do a complete Bruckner cycle. All these other people did, whether they include Symphony 00 and 000 and Octuple 0, well, who cares? But basically, they did complete Bruckner cycles, at least minimally all the numbered symphonies. Celibidache could never have done early Bruckner. He really couldn't. He started with number 3 and worked his way up from there. But still, he was totally devoted to that repertoire. And his excruciatingly slow tempos actually worked when he was on. The interesting thing is that we have exemplars of his work in super slow tempos that do work and super slow tempos that don't work. One of the ones that doesn't work, for example, is the Warner 7th Symphony, which is just too damn slow. But really, for like the 8th, he was just incomparable. He really was extraordinary. And the fourth, which is amazing. He gave a concert at Carnegie Hall, which consisted entirely of the fourth. I mean, it filled up the whole program. And it did fill up the whole program, an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. But it was amazing, hypnotic and focused and intense. And he could do it. He could get away with it, with, endless rehearsals and, exquisite handling of the epiphenomena. He was practically worthless in almost all other repertoire. But in Bruckner, he was special. We have to give him credit where credit is due. Next, Stanislaw Skrowaczewski. His Bruckner cycle with Saarbrücken, the Saarbrücken Radio Symphony Orchestra on Oehms, is tremendous. It has no weak links at all. It's absolutely fabulous from start to finish, wonderfully well played, amazingly balanced, full of insight. Really, Skrowaczewski is a contemporary composer and a contemporary music specialist, and Bruckner works well with contemporary music specialists because there is a way to approach his handling of form, the way that he treated blocks of sonority that jostle for each other and not emphasizing transitions between sections and things like that, which is really quite modern. It's very similar to composers like Messiaen and that type of patchwork, if you want to call it, construction. It's not incompetence. It wasn't worse than anything else that he could have done. It's very distinctive. And it's an angle that validates Bruckner's approach. Of course, the fascinating thing about Bruckner's approach to form is that he probably didn't really know what he was doing. He thought, he knew what he was doing in terms of his doing it, but he didn't understand how it was different so much from what had come before, because he thought he was writing, traditional classical works in standard classical forms. But he really wasn't. He really wasn't. It was a special feeling for movement and shape and structure, and it can be made to work superbly well in an architectural sense, and Skrowaczewski definitely does it. And so did Günter Wand, our last great Bruckner conductor. Now, he did one complete cycle in Cologne, and then for the rest of his career did remakes of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, particularly 8 and 9. 9, he recorded 350 times. I don't know. He just did it everywhere he went. And RCA was following with microphones, and they recorded everything he did. He did it in Japan. He did it in Hamburg. He did it in the train station. He did it in, wherever he was. A Bruckner 9 dropped out. But he was fabulous and consistently fabulous. I mean, when you compare all of these different recordings of the same stuff, you realize it's just a question of how well the engineering went, or how well everything went on the day, the acoustic of the room, or slight details here and there. He famously, at the end of his career, was able to do the last, the big Bruckner symphonies with the Berlin Philharmonic, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, I think he did. And his basic, his most regular base of operations was Hamburg, North German radio. And the truth of the matter is that North German radio performances are better than the Berlin Philharmonic ones generally, because he knew that orchestra, they knew him. He had the rehearsal time he needed to do exactly what he wanted. And it's funny because everybody raved about the Berlin ones, but they weren't as good. They were not as good. They're still very good, by the way. They're still excellent, but the NDR recordings are really the ones to get if you're looking for Günter Wand's Bruckner. And it was amazing. So there you have it, the 5 greatest Bruckner conductors. And I really don't think that, there are people who, maybe we left out a few. I don't think so. Not in this circumstance. These really are, I think, the 5 greatest Bruckner conductors who gave us cycles, who gave us, almost complete cycles, in the case of Celibidache, but they did the composer proud. And nothing that came along after them, I think, has quite been their equal at all. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.